Question 4. A particle performs simple harmonic motion about a fixed point O. When it is 1 centimeter from O, its speed is 8 centimeters per second. When it's 7 centimeters from O, its speed is 4 centimeters per second. We want to find the amplitude. So first of all, when S is 1, V equals 8. So we're going to use the VWAS equation, so V squared equals omega squared on A squared minus S squared. This means 8 squared equals omega squared on A squared minus 1 squared. Or 64 equals omega squared on A squared minus 1. And we can label this as equation number 1. Now when S is 7, V is 4. So again, using V squared is omega squared on A squared minus S squared. 4 squared is going to equal omega squared on A squared minus 7 squared. Or 16 equals omega squared on A squared minus 49. So here we've got a system of two equations with two unknowns. If we divide equation 1 by equation number 2, you get 64 over 16 equals omega squared on A squared minus 1 all over omega squared on A squared minus 49. Now the omega squareds cancel on the right hand side. On the left hand side, 4 then just equals A squared minus 1 all over A squared minus 49. If we bring the A squared minus 49 across and multiply, we get 4 on A squared minus 49 just equals A squared minus 1. On the left, if we multiply in by the 4, you get 4A squared minus 196 equals A squared minus 1. If you bring the A squareds to the left, you get 3A squared. If you bring the constants to the right, you get 195. Dividing by 3 means A squared is 65, which means A then is the square root of 65. Now, if we substitute that value for A into either equation 1 or equation number 2, we can find out what omega is. So using equation number 1, 64 is omega squared on A squared minus 1. Now A squared is 65, so 64 is going to be omega squared on 65 minus 1. 65 minus 1 is 64. This means omega squared is 1, which means omega is 1 rad per second. In part 2, we're going to calculate the periodic time. Now t is just 2 pi over omega, which is just 2 pi over 1, which is just 2 pi seconds. And in part 3 then, we want to find the speed of the particle when it passes through O. Now when it passes through O, you're dealing with the maximum velocity. So Vmax is omega times A. So this means Vmax is going to be, now the omega value is 1 and the amplitude A is root 65. So this means V is just root 65 meters per second.